It's Friday, Geeks, and you are watching another edition of the Friday Night Geek Show. I am Dante D, and welcome to the channel where we talk about comic books and other geek stuff. With me tonight is comic book collector extraordinaire and YouTuber Vincent McLean. Vince, welcome to the show.
How's it going? Thanks for having me.
It is my pleasure. Great to have an esteemed comic book collector such as yourself on the show tonight. So you are joining us in your geek den, which looks really, really cool. So clearly you are totally into the culture of comic books. So tell us all how you got into comic books to begin with.
Well, I've been a comic collector for, a long time, just like everybody else who's like watching or following or anything like that. So, but I really didn't start collect until probably about like 2 or 3 years ago. So, it was, it just kind of started like, I don't know. I don't remember exactly like what was going on around the time that I was like, I'm going to start collecting comic books again because, I had like a little stack of comics back whenever I was a kid and stuff like that and always liked them. But I don't remember if it was like something I saw specifically or whatnot. But yeah, about like 2 years, I think I'd probably say 1.5 years, 2 years, going on 3. So that's where it's at.
Awesome. And Vince's experience is actually pretty similar to mine, I would say, because fun fact, Vince and I are the same age exactly. We were both born in 1988. That was a great year. Great year for comics, great year for wine, and great year for people, right?
Yep, definitely.
So when you were growing up, like, were you immediately attracted to comic books as the medium, or did you kind of get into it by like watching maybe like Batman the animated series or the Spider-Man animated show or Ninja Turtles?
So I would say like my earliest memories is probably seeing the like animated Superman, like the real old one where they did the whole thing like he can, leap taller than the building, he's faster than the speeding train, bullets and stuff like that, like the really old, like that's like my earliest memory that I can think of seeing that. And then after that, definitely the Batman animated series, then the Justice League animated series, like the really good one. And then I did watch Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles back in the day, Street Sharks, all those cool, awesome, 80s, 90s TV shows. Definitely was into all that. So like that was more from like the, introduction to it. But I would definitely say when I started picking up books is whenever you could actually do that at the grocery store. So like you'd be at the grocery store, and I lived in Houston when I was younger. So we go to Randall's and they would have them in the checkout line or in the little library section off to the side, go over there and just look at some stuff. And, I just ended up picking up some random stuff. Nothing big or key. I wasn't one of those fortunate kids that picked up like an Amazing Spider-Man 300 at the grocery store. That didn't ever happen to me. But if it did, I hope that somebody in my family would have had the wherewithal to like, bag and board it and keep it safe. But all my old comics are just beat up. They're readers, water damage. But thankfully, I've been able to find some of those books now that I've been collecting in better conditions to actually have in my collection, especially the ones that are like really beat up. So that's just kind of like how that all started.
Mm-hmm. And you just mentioned Street Sharks. What a freaking throwback right there.
Yeah.
Let me know in the comments, folks, if you're watching tonight and you've heard of Street Sharks. Another one, Vince, you probably remember is Biker Mice from Mars. Do you remember that one at all?
What was it called?
Biker Mice from Mars. If you search the I don't know if you remember those ones.
I don't think I watched this.
Okay,
no,
yeah.
I didn't watch that.
And there was also the Stone Protectors, Captain Planet, and the Planeteers.
I did do Captain Planet.
Yeah.
I did watch that. Gargoyles. That's definitely on my wish. Actually, I need to add that here in a second. But Gargoyles was like dope. Wait, is this a family-friendly live stream?
Somewhat, yeah. I
Okay.
mean, I don't swear too much on it.
Okay.
But
All right. Just what I meant to ask that before we jumped in, but
yeah,
definitely Gargoyles was dope AF for me back in the day. I love that
yeah.
show. But I would say that the animated series, Batman animated series, is definitely one of the big ones. And then the Mask of the Phantasm. That is by far probably one of my favorite animated movies ever. I actually did watch it like a few months ago because they posted it onto Netflix or whatnot.
Hmm.
And I'll be honest, that movie like really was like dark and scary to me like when I first watched it, and I didn't like entirely understand what was going on. But that is definitely a big nostalgia, kind of movie and stuff like that. So
Absolutely. And I just wanted to take a minute to welcome all the viewers that are just rolling in here. We have Adrian Benningfield. Welcome back, Adrian. I know you've joined us weekly since we started the podcast here. We have another Vince here tonight, Vince Hudson. Thank you so much for dropping by. Then we have Louis. Louis also been with us every single week and was also our first guest on the show. And Crash Landon, who I'm sorry we started without you. So, but now you're here for the rest of the show. So let's get in and talk a little bit about the nitty gritty, and that would be comic book collecting. So when would you say you really seriously started collecting? Because you're pretty particular with how you collect.
yes, I am very particular about how I collect, especially now. Um, I'd probably say that like I really started really collecting probably after the Venom live action movie that came out with Tom Hardy. Like
Mhm.
I started collecting like around the time when that came out. Or like a little bit before, like somewhere in there. Like I want to say it's somewhere in that area. And I'm really glad I did that. I've got the entire Venom run. I think I've showed it on my live stream last Tuesday. I've got the entire run on that. I've got 9 over there slabbed for the number 3. And, during that time, collecting and trying to build up a collection and having books, I was, trying to get everything on my pull list. I was doing mystery mail calls with like Comic Tom 101. Just trying to get more books in my possession, and it definitely kind of got out of hand. You have too much stuff on your pull list, and you don't end up going every week to pick up your books, and then you start getting phone calls saying, "Hey, you've got a lot of books in your box. You need to come pick those up before they start getting pulled out." So once I pretty much like got a good size amount of books, and I'm talking like 600 books, in like a pretty small amount of time, especially if you're getting new stuff that's coming out every week. Then I started looking at like what specifically I wanted to start picking up and what I wanted to actually add to my collection to add value long term, as well as like, stuff that I like and I want to read and I want to look at. And so during that process, I really started cutting everything down, and I went from like 600 plus books to I think I'm at like three. What am I at? I'm at 361 now. So I cut my collection in half. I traded up for some stuff, just took cash for other stuff to help out in life and whatnot. But that's where I'm at now. And like, I'm very particular about what I want to get as far as collections. Now today, for example, I went to 2 half price books, and I went and checked out a shop I hadn't been to near where I'm at. And I only got 3 books, and that was from Half Price Books. And I found Die, 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 number 1, 2, and 3. And I picked up those, and that was it. I think I paid like $1.50 for all 3 of those books. And, I looked in, the lock boxes for the Half Price books to look at the, good stuff. There was like a Amazing Spider-Man that was like part of that Craven, where he's like holding the black suit.
Yeah, Craven's Last Hunt.
Yeah, I almost picked that up, but I wasn't like, this isn't something I really want. So I passed on that. I'm sure everybody in there is probably like, you should have probably got that. That's kind of significant. And you're right, it is significant. But right now, I am trying to focus more on getting DC and independent books, because I'm sure just like you, Dante, you have a crap ton of Marvel, like
Yep.
a crap ton of Marvel.
Yep.
And that's just purely because Marvel has newer stuff. You know, like if you're trying to look for DC books, those good key DC books, they're old as hell. And they're usually going to be really expensive just because of how old they are and how long DC has been around. So most of us, and especially since you and me are the same age, we collect a lot of the same stuff. And it's mostly Marvel, Bronze Age stuff, Copper Age stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm really trying to focus on getting some more DC content, comics, and more independent and stuff like that. That's just kind of like where I'm at. And that's what I did today, you know, just like real short trip. I wasn't looking to spend a whole bunch of money and stuff like that. And just, you know, I just picked up some easy stuff. So that's where that's at.
Right. You know, and that's really interesting how you're able to call that my collection is mostly Marvel. I know you've seen quite a bit of my collection, but I do find that a lot of people focus a lot on Bronze Age Marvel, and I think the bulk of my collection is actually Marvel. My favorite superhero of all time is Batman. I know you were talking yesterday how Batman was overhyped, but yeah, I think the bulk of my DC books are like all Batman, and then a whole bunch of like various Marvel books from the Bronze Age. So. Do you have any thoughts on that? Why do you think people are so drawn to Marvel, like Marvel Bronze Age, Marvel Silver Age? Oh, well, obviously I know the Silver Age, but what is it about Marvel Bronze Age you think that people love?
I think overall, there's more diversity, and probably this is my assumption. Don't take like if there's any, you know, comic book creators or up and comers. This is purely my opinion, and it's probably entirely wrong. But I really think that there's more diversity in Marvel comics. There's more interesting characters in Marvel comics, and I really think that they did a really good job of capitalizing during that era and during that time. Just like you, I love Ghost Rider, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're big X-Men guys. And like those, like that style of comic, the way that looks like really draws me in. Those Bronze Age, I can't talk, Bronze Age books, the way those look really sucks you in, and for good reason, because they're really great stories, they're really great covers, and they hold that value. And when you look at newer stuff around that time for DC, it still can end up being like more expensive still, just because of the time. And that's just my pure speculation. It could be 100% wrong. But I don't know. Like I'm looking on my collectors, CLZ collectors app right now. I'm looking at my comic list. Out of the 361 comics that I own, I have 193 are Marvel, 70 are DC, and 69 are Image. So like a huge chunk of my collection is all Marvel.
Right.
And so I'm trying to kind of like move that around a little bit, slowly but surely. But you know, those books that you want, those DC keys, they're kind of hard to find. And also because they're kind of hard to find, they're usually going to be in a lot less good condition, because a lot of them were readers back in the day. So it's for me trying to really zero in on how I want my collection to look. Quality is something that's important to me, unless it's literally like I have to have it and I don't care what it looks like, which is very few and far between. It's just harder to get those books and those kind of qualities and at the right price. So,
and in asking the question, why Marvel, right? Samuel David very curtly said X-Men, and I probably would agree with that. I mean, you know, X-Men was massive in the 1980s, so you know people are always going after X-Men, Amazing Spider-Man, but I think you make a good point too that there was such a huge variety in with Marvel, like the different genres. They didn't just have superhero. Like I personally love Marvel horror. Their Marvel horror books are great. I actually have the Marvel horror omnibus, which I haven't read yet, but I can't wait to dive into it. It just they had such a great line of books. I know DC did as well. You know, they had some really good horror books, like, you know, they had Swamp Thing, and they tried it out with different genres, like, you know, westerns with Jonah Hex and all that. But yeah, you know, it's really interesting. Like, but you know, obviously DC made a comeback. And do you have any thoughts on, you know, how they made a comeback, why they made a comeback? You know, because honestly, um, late 1980s DC and like 1990s DC is like that's my stuff. Like I absolutely love it. Like I thought DC had such stellar books in the 90s. What about you?
I don't know specifically on that because I don't remember what in the 90s. I mean, are you talking like well, that's 86. I mean, you got the Batman The Dark Knight Returns. Okay, so
Yeah,
that
for sure.
obviously saved Batman with Frank Miller and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is still 80s, but you know, almost 90s. Crisis on Infinite Earths. So that's a
Mm-hmm.
great storyline. There's a lot of major key issues in there that pretty much saved everything that was going on for that. All right, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Did the death of Superman? Okay, so
And I unironically am the biggest fan of that series. I love it. I don't know how you feel
I
about it.
love it, and it's very telling of your age.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know. I definitely think that the comic did a hell of a lot better job of killing Superman than the god awful Batman vs Superman movie.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a second print of the Man of Steel first appearance of Doomsday, and I like that one a lot because Doomsday is a great villain,
Mm-hmm.
and they definitely do a hell of a lot better job of showing how villainous he is in that. So I don't know. I really don't know what really saved DC as far as that go. Me personally, for DC stuff, I end up drawing more towards like Vertigo, more
Mm-hmm.
towards the darker,
Okay.
you know, grittier stuff. So I'm a huge John Constantine fan. I love Preacher. I just picked up me a Preacher #1, got that slide recently in one of my videos. If you guys want to check out my first CGC unboxing video, just head over to my channel. It's one of the big feature videos I got, and then you see me be like a good old giddy little schoolgirl showing what I got. I did pick up a Sandman #1 recently. You know, just like gritty stuff like that. That's what I get drawn to for DC stuff.
Right.
And I don't know if that was any type of factor during that time in the 90s that really helped to like propel DC up a little bit more. But I don't know. I think the movies that came out in the 90s probably helped give a little bit more ideas
Mm-hmm.
and really kind of brought DC into the forefront a little bit more. You know, the Michael Keaton Batman, huge, great success, you know,
Right.
versus, you know, like Batman and Robin with, you know, the nipple suits, you know, it's just real bad. But they gave us Mr. Freeze, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and, you know, that is just classic. So, you know, that's where that is. But I don't know. I think Marvel still was reigning supreme. Definitely still reigning supreme. And they really have a really better idea of what to do. Maybe DC's just trying to be more adult, and they're like missing that generation gap. Like they're trying to be adult for this generation, but we're already past here. You know, maybe they're a little late to the game or something like that. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a good point that you make about the movies that were coming out in, you know, especially Batman 89. You know, I saw news reports on YouTube of people lining up around blocks to see this movie, and then right after going to comic book stores to pick up some comic books. You know, there was a lot of media at the time touting that comic books were better investment than the stock market. You know, like there was a lot of that going around. But then you also made a good point about like the darker stories. You know, with Dark Knight Returns, I think DC really started that trend of like these really dark stories. And then you had this mass exodus of these creators leaving Marvel and going over to DC. So you had like George Perez, you had John Byrne. Like John Byrne, I think single-handedly turned that company around. John Byrne and Frank Miller, especially, you know what I mean? Like unbelievable work, and that just led to some really great stuff in the 90s. But you know, the sales, you know, you're right. You know, Marvel definitely had better sales. You know, so yeah, it's just some people here, like Crash Landon was saying, Swamp Thing.
Click on his comment. So there you go.
There we go. Swamp Thing, House of Secrets, House of Mystery, Unexpected Weird War Tales, It's Midnight, The Witching Hour, all 70s DC horror goodness. Yeah, I've actually read a little bit of the House of Mystery, House of Secrets. Actually, I think it was House of Mystery had I, Vampire. I don't know if you've read I, Vampire, but I'm a huge I, Vampire fan.
You know, when I was out looking today, I think I did come across some I, Vampire stuff, but, you know, I know nothing about it, so I'm not going to pick it up.
Highly recommend it.
Click on Studio Fitness, his comment.
Louis. Here we
Events in comics such as Death of Superman and Nightfall saved DC. They were outselling Marvel, who tried to compete with the Clone Saga. 90s DC changed the industry forever. There's very true stuff that you're saying there. 100%. You know, if it wasn't for the Death of Superman, then there wouldn't have been all that coverage, you know,
right,
pulling up on, you know, nightly news and stuff like that, you know, and that's definitely how that went. But I can say for me, during that time and where I was at in life, I was definitely not really paying too much attention to comics in that time. You know, I was young, wasn't really paying attention to it. So I think I still was more drawn to Marvel stuff, but that was, you know, with stuff I was watching on TV. But, you know, Batman animated series, the Justice League animated series, you know, those were the things I really loved from DC that they did. And that's, you know, always stuck with me. So.
Absolutely. Now, let's get back into the collecting for a second. So we're talking about like a lot of these books that sold very, very well. And there are a lot of those floating around. As a person who's still very active as a collector, would you say those books are worth collecting?
Which ones are you talking about specifically?
So, you know, the tried and true ones that are probably in everyone's collection, like, you know, Death of Superman, Jim Lee X-Men #1, Todd McFarlane Spider-Man #1, Breaking of the Bat.
So those books are definitely still very collectible. And for somebody that was starting out trying to collect comics and didn't really know where to start out with, I told you yesterday when we were, you know, doing a dry run, you were a huge inspiration for me to be able to go out and find those books. You put out, these are some books you should get if you want to start collecting that are real cheap and real easy to come by. So I added those to my collection. They bring value. You know, whether or not somebody's going to put like a high price tag onto it, if I was going to sell it, you know, I don't know, but it is a key book in history and has some type of major event that happened. And so because of that, they're still very collectible. I was able to get all 4 of those Jim Lee X-Men #1s, like the whole set for like $20. Yep. You know, I did that at a con. I picked them all up. He had them all 4 being sold at once. So, you know, I did my part. You know, I picked all those up. You know, the Death of Superman, you got to have that. It's a huge moment. It's pretty cheap out there to be able to find nowadays still. You know, I think they're still important to get. That Spider-Man #1, I've got the cover A. I don't have like that black foil one or the gold foil one. I'd like to get that at some point if I've come across it, but I'm not like going out of my way to look for that because I've already got the first one. But those are definitely things that people can pick up to be able to start building their collections and start adding value to their collection. Definitely.
Absolutely. And now, would you say, because based on the way comic book prices are nowadays, I mean, we all know we all know the way comic book prices are on eBay. You know, like there are some Bronze Age keys and Bronze Age books in general that are not necessarily keys that are going for quite high prices. So would you say these lower priced 90s books may be the future of collecting?
No, I don't think so. That might be controversial.
I think it's based on opinion, obviously, but yeah.
I mean, if you look at the big, the big event that happened, in the 90s with all those guys leaving Marvel, everybody went out and bought Young Blood #1. Like that was one of the biggest books that came out by Rob Liefeld. But that value of that book is not as big, say, as like Spawn #1, even
right.
just like the regular direct edition and not the newsstand edition. I think there are still. I don't think it's going to be the same. I don't think there's going to be a crash in the comic book collecting industry like it was then to where it's now. We briefly touched on that on the Andy Given Thursday show last week. I think it was. Yeah, I don't remember I think it was on that show, maybe the week before last, but we were talking about, is the collection gonna, collectability gonna have like a pitfall with like all the new modern books coming out with like all the variants and stuff like that and whatnot that's coming out. And I don't think we're gonna have that same issue, but I think that those old books back in the 90s, certain ones definitely are going to increase in value overall. But a good chunk of those probably aren't going to be like to where that's at. Like if I was to pick any book out of the 90s from that split of Todd McFarlane and everybody going to Image, 100% without a doubt, Spawn #1 is that like patriarch book that will forever be amazing and will forever stay as like the pinnacle of that era of like really taking off and going into a different direction. That's my opinion. I've got a Spawn #1. It's not the newsstand edition. It's a direct edition, but like it's a great looking book and it's just going to hold value. And like when I was out looking for books today, it really kind of sucked because like I was trying to find some Spawn books. I'm trying to get, some of those more low print runs and stuff like that. And there's just not really much out there. I did find like a Spawn #90 and like a 91, but man, they had like 8 million spine ticks down on the side of it. And it's just like, I'm going to have to pass on that. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Mm-hmm. And hi, Haley.
Thank you.
It's very good.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, with those books, and I think that's the problem with Image Comics. Everybody associates the lack of quality of comic books in the 90s with Image. And I think comics from the 90s get a bad rap because of Image. And I've said this once, I'll say it again. Spawn #1 is that shining kernel of corn among the piles of pig shit that was Image Comics in the 1990s. So, but the 90s wasn't bad. And it's actually kind of, I don't know if it's refreshing or disappointing, probably a little bit of both, to see some of these 90s books going up in value. I was actually laughing so hard. I remember a while ago, if you've ever heard of Scott Nicewander from NerdSync, he did a video on the comic book collecting in the 90s. And at the time he made the video, I don't know if he made it like 6 years ago, he pulled up Venom the Lethal Protector, the whole run of those books, and it was under $1 on eBay. And now if you go and you look for that book on eBay, it is well into, you're looking at between 70 and to $100. I don't know if you could pull that up real quick, but it's expensive now. And to think that it went from pennies on the dollar to, almost $100 for the whole set. It's unbelievable, to see that.
Let me see if I can pull it up here real quick and we can take a look at it. I think the majority of that price for that run, for that series, is still going to be from the #1, 100%. I'm looking right now. I'm seeing 9.8s are going for $75.
Yeah.
So you're basically pretty much spot on for that. You know, if you want to get all of those books for that particular title, you're going to spend at least $100, and 75, 3/4 of that price is going to be for the number one. And I think it's a great run. I've got the number one, and I think I got like number three. You know, I don't have that full 6-issue set. That might be something I'll need to try to complete someday. But
I highly recommend it. It's great.
funny thing is, here in Dallas, they've got one of the every year they do two big like warehouse sales, like one in the summer or spring-ish, summer-ish, and the one in the fall. And I went there, and they literally had tables and tables and tables of comics, and they were all 50 cents each. And I found a Venom Lethal Protector in there, and I got that for 50 cents. So it's possible, but it's not going to happen very often. You know, if you go to a shop nowadays, you're going to see a Venom Lethal Protector. It's going to be up on the wall. It's not going to be. It's not going to be in the bins. At least $40. You know, if they're going to sell it like that. But you know, it's just. It's kind of a hit and miss. And it depends on which shops you go to. Sometimes you'll find them in their bins. I think Perry said if you're actively hunting, you'll find the whole run cheap and $1-2 bins. Yeah, you can find it.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's you got to look for it. Like if that's something that you're trying to find, then when you go out hunting, that should be all you're trying to focus on. Because if you don't just focus on that one thing you're trying to look for that day, you're going to end up getting sidetracked with everything else, and then you're going to be spending the money that you wanted to spend for that on other stuff that you probably didn't like originally want to pick up. So, you know, it's there, but you got to really look for it, and you got to take the time.
And the price differentials, it's actually really jaw dropping to know that you can get that in the dollar bins, but if you want to buy them up, you know, whole set on eBay, you're going to be spending almost $100. Like it's unbelievable. And I mean, this is my thought on this, you know, because, you know, all these newer people that are coming into comic book collecting, I think they're taking a look at all the prices of books from the 60s, 70s, heck, some even in the 1980s, and they're not really wanting to dish out that much cash. So they're resorting to starting off their collections with 90s books, thereby increasing the prices of 90s books somewhat. Because, I mean, I don't know what else could be causing these price increases of 90s books. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, it's with everything else that's going on. You know, you got like pop collectors, you got statue collectors, you got movies, you got TV shows. Like, you've got all those factors that are going into play. And then depending on how society reacts to that, that's going to either increase or decrease in the market, just like anything else. So, you know, if we were talking about the Venom Lethal Protector line, that really spiked a lot because of the Tom Hardy Venom movie that came out. And if you look at it now, like I'm looking at eBay sold for August 21st, I'm looking at Venom Lethal Protector #1 sold for $7.25. So, and then there's also somebody that sold a 9.8 for $90. So, like an actual slab copy of it. So, you know, you're going to have ups and downs in the market, just like in the stock price and stuff like that. You know, it's just kind of how it goes. And there's tons of other factors that do play into that. But you know, you look at like Bloodshot, right? So I think Samuel David had mentioned it. You know, he really liked those Valiant titles and really good reads. Bloodshot is definitely a really good story, pretty good read, a very interesting character. But if you look at the movie with Vin Diesel, you know, it hasn't really done super great. I think it's probably going to start to turn into that, you know, kind of cult classic kind of title, like some of his other movies and stuff, like Chronicles of Riddick and just Riddick, which, by the way, are some of my favorite movies. You know, you could probably find those books for a hell of a lot cheaper now. But leading up to the movie, there was a lot of speculation. A lot of people were like, man, this is going to be big. I need to pick this up. I need to try to find it. So, you know, that's like another, you know, kind of 90s kind of deal. But if you look at like Spawn, dude, pinnacle of the 90s, and Spawn books, all of them hold value. All of them have massive amount of value. And another example to show of why, like how is this possible? What's going on? I think this coming Wednesday we're supposed to get Spawn 309, and cover B has the Gunslinger Spawn Gunslinger on the cover. Pre-sales on eBay have showed that spiked up to $50 to $75, and it hadn't even dropped yet. So, some of these 90 characters, they still hold value because of the character itself, and it's just so beloved by the comic community. And then you have others where it's, it's kind of like a hit and miss, but it ends up trending because of what's going on in the world. So that's kind of where that's at.
Yeah, and these trends are I find like the collecting nowadays in comparison, I've said this before, collecting nowadays in comparison to collecting, say, I don't know, 25 years ago, the collector's market is very much driven by the movies, by TV shows. Back then it was just kind of driven by whatever was popular or new storylines back then. So, but on that note, as an active collector, what would you say is really hot right now? What should people be paying attention to?
Well, I guess that's really kind of subjective. It kind of depends on what you're kind of into. So you got any other specific example, maybe?
Well, yesterday, and I've said this before, my weakness with respect to comic book knowledge is usually lies in the realm of independent publishers. And I know you're talking about a lot of independent books, and a lot of people that were active in the comments of some of the videos that we posted on the channel, we're talking about a lot of independent books. And I think that the one you were talking about the dead children, what's that?
Something is killing the children.
Something is killing the children. Yes. So what's going on in the indie comic world right now that's really getting people to pay attention to indie comics?
Well, I don't know exactly. My thought is probably more to do with the variants, to be honest. I think, and we had briefly talked about this on one of the last shows I did, where, during the 90s, they were trying to bring out like the chrome and different like variant looking covers, and it just didn't work. But now you see a lot of that going on right now. And it's working a lot because I think the artwork and the artists are just phenomenal. They're just putting out crazy new artwork and ideas. And also, if you've noticed, if you go to pick up new books, which I know you haven't been doing for a while, but if you go to pick up a new book, some of these particular titles and whatnot, like the cardstock for the cover and the paper that they're using is a lot different. So they could probably have an easier time of, doing more extravagant, more detailed, more realistic artwork on it. So it ends up drawing people more to it. And then like with these indie comics, that's just kind of like, in my opinion, like another draw to really get buyers to really purchase those books and read those books, because they'll put out different variants and stuff like that. But that could also be said the same for modern titles, Thor, Venom, and the Immortal Hulk. Big, huge titles that are coming out, and like they're just normal staples. Like they're just hot. But for the most part, it's due in part because the writer, Donny Cates, is on fire right now, on fire, and then Al Ewing is on fire with Immortal Hulk right now. It's just great. And then Something Killing the Children with Tinian is like really great too. He's an amazing writer. A lot of people are really big into that Batman storyline that's going on right now. And he's been all over that. He's just been killing it. So I don't know. It just kind of depends on what you're kind of really wanting to get. I just find myself drawn to more obscure stuff. And so indie comics is where I'm at. And unfortunately, I have a bad case of FOMO with Something is Killing the Children. I've been looking at a fourth print for #1 on eBay for like the past couple days. I'm like, do I want to get it? Should I get it? I don't know. But I definitely would say indie books are big right now. The stories are amazing, and I would suggest that keep your big time publisher staples, because the stuff that's coming out right now is great. Venom, Thor, Immortal Hulk, like great storylines, and they're just big titles, big great staples. And these books, especially these lines that are going on right now, are going to hold value. I really think they're going to hold value over time. But if you're trying to look for some other stuff, indie is where you need to be at, because they're just dropping crazy good content. So that was a long ramble.
No, that's okay. So, there you have it, people, viewers, to all the viewers tonight. Indie is on fire. And like I said, indie has always been a weakness of mine. And you did mention some other books from the big two that are currently worth collecting right now. So let's talk a little bit about that, because the big two are really kind of getting a bad rap online lately. It's very, very easy to find videos on YouTube and to see blog posts regarding all of the crap that DC and Marvel are putting out. I know, like, we on the channel posted a video not too long ago about Trailblazer and the new Warriors and all of that. Yeah,
I know what you're talking about. I did watch a video of that. I'm not going to comment much on that, just because, like, I think it is important to be delicate, but also, like, I don't think ignorance is bliss in the comic book world. There are a few indie titles that I've almost picked up that kind of, like, really, like, have a different perspective on other members of society and the trials and tribulations they go on. I could be wrong about this, but I'm not going to say which one it is, because I don't want to say the wrong title for the wrong depiction. But I do think the book that you did that review on, where you were pretty PO'd that, like, somebody gave them the okay to publish that. Like, I think it's a bit much. I will agree with you that it's a bit much, but this has been going on for a long time. Like, the whole point of the X-Men is literally like that's what the X-Men are. They're people that are being treated differently because they have powers or they look differently. Like, literally, that's what the X-Men stand for. And I think it's important that, with the times changing, to find a way to be as unique and have a great story to show and give people a different perspective on other people and what they have to go through in their daily lives. I think it is important. And those titles that are out there, you should pick up. Like I said, I think it's called Philadelphia. I think that's one of them. But I could be wrong on that. So sorry, guys in the chat, if you come in here and you start, trying to, throw stones at me for getting it wrong. But I think that's one of them. There was another one that I almost picked up. But I do think it's important. Okay, Philadelphia is the vampire one. Okay, there was a different one.
There we go. Yeah.
But, like, are you big into, like, Lovecraft and story and, like, and stuff
absolutely.
like that? So there's a new show that's coming out on HBO Max. I think it's called Lovecraft Country. And basically what it is you have African Americans that are, like, trying to, like, join, or, like, they're being brought into, like, this new type of like cult society, which is, like, Lovecraftian stuff. And it's really kind of showing the opposite of how H.P. Lovecraft was. H.P. Lovecraft was a notorious racist, a very notorious racist. And so these people that wrote the book really have flipped the script, literally flipped the script. So the stars of this story are African Americans. And it just, like, goes to show that, like, just because somebody was and is no longer here anymore to do these types of stories, we could actually turn it and make it into something that's very relatable, but also show the themes that come with Lovecraft, dark cosmic horror, which is stuff I love. I've got my Cthulhu statue, which is actually it's like a little coin, holder. But, it's just, I think it is important to allow artists to be able to make content that is very relevant to today's society and point out some of those major issues that are going on, but they need to deliver it with a great story, and they need to have an artist that can depict it exactly how they're trying to tell it. Otherwise, you end up getting what you were commenting on in that video, which is total garbage. So,
right. And that's the thing, and the people that are complaining about this type of content, I would really, and let me know if you are in the viewers and you are, more right leaning. But I really want to know if there are any people out there that are a little bit more right winged, maybe racist, or I don't know. Can those people enjoy comics? Because I would think that we as comic book readers in general, I would say we're all pretty progressive people. And, even with the people that have been complaining about that type of content, I don't think they're racist. I don't think they're bigots. I just think people just don't like extremes, maybe. I don't know. That's just my opinion. But I would really like, I know that was, I stand corrected. I'm not,
yeah,
I'm not saying right wing, but
I'm gonna let you shoot yourself in your foot on that one there.
No, that's okay. I can stand corrected. Trust me. I'm not trying to say that I'm an expert on it. I'm not really political.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I know what you're trying to say.
But I want to know, if there's anybody out there that legit has some pretty extreme views on either side, can you enjoy comics? Yeah. So I don't know if you know people like that. I'd love to hear from you in the comments right now. But
I think I understand what you're trying to say, albeit a little bit choppy. Mm-hmm. But if people that view differently to an extreme point, but extreme is really kind of I think extreme is really kind of subjective still. Perry, you're freaking hilarious, by the way. Hey, Perry, I just want to say shout out, man. Much love to you, brother. I know you're hurting right now, as well as everybody in the community. So it means a lot that you're here watching me. I've been trying to follow you as much as possible, but much love to you, brother. But I think even conservative people can read, and I think conservative people probably do read comics. But I don't know if that really is a good, a really good, measuring level to determine whether or not they, feel the same way or not. That's just, I don't know. I don't know.
You know what? No, and the only reason why I asked that is, and again, this is probably the least articulate and eloquent that I've ever been in my life, because I'm trying to kind of explore territory that's not really my expertise whatsoever.
Yeah.
But I've heard from people on the channel who have said some pretty egregious things, that were pretty extreme. And I'm talking not extreme left, but I'm talking extreme, some of the things they're saying are almost fascist. And sorry if I'm using that term a little too freely, but I'm thinking, these people are watching comic book videos, really? I don't know.
I mean, you also got to remember, it's easier to say some stuff, over the internet, pretty, whimsically, just put it out there. I can just say whatever I want, no problem. But, if they're really confronted with it face to face, probably end up changing a little bit. But I think everybody in their life, probably at some point has read a comic book. And for the most part, when they're reading the comic book, they're probably not thinking about like their own personal views for the most part. I think they're probably picking it up. They're looking at it because, oh, wow, this looks really pretty. Or I like the way this cover looks. I'm going to read it real quick. And then they read it and either let it sink in to a deeper part, or they just read it for the face value. I think that's pretty accurate description of how most people are for the majority of the time. And then, like for us in the comic book community, especially if you find something that you really, really, truly enjoy, you're going to dissect it. You're going to look at every little nook and cranny. You're going to see, what subtext was used. You're going to look and see, what really is going on. And especially as you get older, you start to realize, what the X-Men really stood for, for diversification, non-segregation, like stop judging people for the way they look or what powers they have. They're just regular people trying to blend in and be a part of society. So, I think that's really what it comes down to on a person to person basis. You're going to have people that are going to just read it because they're bored and they were at the airport waiting for their plane, or, on the bus and somebody left a beat up comic. It's just going to kind of be different for everybody.
Absolutely. And, I think there's a measure of, putting your own views and beliefs aside for particular comic books. People have asked me how I identify politically, because I've expressed views on the channel that can be put on either side of the spectrum. For the record, I'm pretty apolitical. I just like to argue from different perspectives and see what everyone thinks. So, I don't really have any strong views on anything, I would say. But, I have to say there are some comic books that I've read that are, very human stories. And even if I'm not necessarily agreeing with the theme of the story or what the author's trying to say, I can read it and say, that's actually very well done. I think people really need to kind of put their views aside sometimes when they're reading books, because I think that can really affect the way you enjoy a particular book. So.
So Studio Fitness posted the DC bloodbath earlier this week makes me worry about the future of their titles. It may be signaling a trend towards halting printing of weekly comics. Any thoughts? Totally. I have lots of thoughts, because there are, like I said, certain titles that I am focusing on and other titles I'm not. And to be honest, there is not a lot of DC titles that I'm really focusing on. And it's not necessarily because of what happened at DC Comics, but mostly because it's just not really drawing me in. So I would like to say, I hope that printing of comics, especially you guys out there that like to get real modern comics that are coming out, I hope that there's not going to be any future printing issues or, setbacks. But, that's probably going to end up changing at some point. That's why I say, really, honestly, try to go for more indie stuff. It allows people to have more freedom. It allows the creators to own the property and to really do what they want to do. For example, one of my favorite stories is Donny Cates' God Country. And if you have not read God Country, go pick up the trade paperback of God Country. It is a great read. It is a very emotional read. There's a huge emotional connection. I felt a huge emotional connection, especially at the finale of the end of that read. That just kind of ties into what you were kind of talking about, trying to find something that you can connect to that's not really, I guess you could say, political, but it's like you end up feeling a connection in that particular story that's really important. So I think it's important for us to really put more effort into getting some of those other titles into our collections, because when you have that will ultimately add more value to your collection overall, especially if that's what you're trying to do. Like me, my goal as a collector is, if I was going to sell my comic book collection, for example, to Very Gary Comics, all right, sure if you're in the comic book community, you know who Very Gary Comics is. He buys a lot of collections. Okay. My goal is if I was to sell my comic book collection to Very Gary Comics, he would literally have to go and stop at every single book, pick it up, and be like on his camera as he's filming it. That's a key. That's a key. That's a minor. That's a first appearance. That's a key. That's how I want my comic book collection to be. And I think if too many people are focusing on getting Marvel or DC all the time, then you're not adding enough diversity. You're not adding enough rarity and scarcity to your comic books. And with everything that's going on with DC, a lot of people getting, laid off and stuff like that. I think it's important for us to support DC, get those books that you want. If you're a Batman fan, go for the new Batman story that's going out. It's hot. Get it. It's good. I myself am trying to collect the DC Dark Knight's Death Metal, mostly because I want the guitar variant. I've already got the Batman guitar variant. I need the Wonder Woman guitar variant, and I need the Superman one. I've got one of three. But I think it's really important to continue to support the comic book industry because, just like in the 90s, all these, guys left Marvel and they created their own thing, and there's a huge speculation whether or not it's going to fail or not. And they went and just printed a whole crap ton of books, and people picked up a whole crap ton of those copies, and they're thinking it's going to hold value over time. And then there's a whole speculation. Okay, are we going to continue to do comic books, actually print them, or are we going to go to digital? I think it's important for us to, as collectors, get those books in your hands. And the only way to do that is to go to your local comic book shop, especially now, order online on eBay, do FOC, check your FOC off of Previous World, go to your comic book shop. You need to do that because the bloodbath that we had to deal with, I don't think it's by any means because the comic book industry is failing. I think it's more to do with the pandemic that we're still in, but you still, as our comic book society, we need to support the shops so we can get the goodness that we want in our hands. And it's going to be amazing.
Now, and there definitely is, for those that are not picking up new comic books. I know I'm not picking up new comic books, so I don't want to sound like a hypocrite, but I am still reading some of the things that are out there. I'm just not actively buying new issues and trying to collect new issues, but there is a lot of great stuff. And can't say I never listened to the viewers, because after that video about the new Warriors was posted, a lot of people were like, hey, okay, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but there actually is a lot of great stuff that Marvel's putting out. And I went out and I picked up some of the recommendations. So now, Vince, you were talking on your channel about the Immortal Hulk. Mm-hmm. Definitely had to pick this up. I've actually read these first few issues. This is some really stellar stuff. So if you have not read Immortal Hulk yet, you definitely have to check it out. It's I think it's the best Hulk's been in a while. I really, when I got back into collecting back in I think it was 2010 or something, I really wanted to like Hulk, because Hulk's one of my favorite characters, and it's not been good. But now with Immortal Hulk, it's just amazing. What do you think about Immortal Hulk?
Immortal Hulk is great. I think I've really fallen behind on Immortal Hulk. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, but I've read the first 4, 7, 10 issues or something like that, and it is really good. I enjoy it. I especially like the first issue because he's kind of psychotic in a way. He just kind of whenever those in the beginning, that guy ended up in the grocery store and ended up killing, the store clerk / the random pedestrian. Yeah. And then Hulk followed him and literally was psychotic and just literally murdered these guys. And
this.
Yeah.
Love that panel.
When you see that, and you if you think about it, if that actually really happened, I would be absolutely shitting my pants, because the Hulk is literally going to beat you into a pulp. So I definitely would suggest that. Have you been reading the Donny Cates Thor run?
The Thor run, I haven't picked up yet. I've heard a lot of good things about it. I will read it. I've been reading Donny Cates' Venom, though.
Donny Cates' Venom is great. I think you probably are going to like Thor even more because this issue that just came out on Wednesday was insane. Like, I'm telling you, like, if you thought Immortal Hulk was powerful, Donny Cates' Thor might be probably one of the most powerful like beings currently in the universe. Like,
okay, I'm gonna pick it up.
Pound for pound power right now, Thor would beat the shit out of Immortal Hulk 100%. Like, awesome. I'm putting that out there. It is great. And what ends up happening in this last issue was insane. Yeah, like Samuel David, you said better than Venom in your opinion. I would say like where Venom's at right now and what it's trying to track to. I would agree with that. Now, like in the first, like 7-10 issues of Venom, the Donny Cates Venom, like that was amazing. Like when you first get introduced to Null, and then you see the background information about how Null come about, like that was insane. Mm-hmm. And then you're just like, wow, Null literally made like a blacksmithing like setup in the head of a Celestial. Like who the fuck does that?
Yeah.
But like Thor, like you need to do Thor. It's so good. And unfortunately, because you decided you just wanted to stop being, a comic book collector, I don't know why the hell you wanted to do that. But you need to pick up that trade paperback for Thor.
I will.
Or you can read it online and you don't even have to waste money for it, which is what I end up doing most of the time.
Yeah.
It is great. It is really, really good. And if you want to read a DC title, I would say read Dark Knight Death Metal. That was really good. And then another DC title that came out last year was The Batman Who Laughs, his 6th
I read that actually.
Okay,
so
that was good. Now that you read that, then when you read Dark Knight's Death Metal, you'll like start to get a better understanding. There's like a gap from Batman Who Laughs to Dark Knight's Death Metal that I didn't really read. They like brought in like that new crazy, super powerful chick, like some kind of like it was like kind of like in the Thor Ragnarok, how they like or how Odin banished Hela to like a whole different dimension. Well, there was like this other super crazy powerful being. You guys put down the comments down below if you know who I'm talking about. I don't remember the name, but she's like super crazy powerful. And the Batman Who Laughs literally was like, if I bring you to this universe, I'm going to allow you to use some of the dark energy and dark matter that I brought from my alternate universe, being the Batman Who Laughs, help you like get super powerful and jacked. And we're just going to like end the world kind of thing. But like Dark Knight Death Metal is definitely, yeah,
Perpetua.
that chick. Yeah, Perpetua. Yeah, see, it's like, whatever. But Dark Knight Death Metal is great. I've enjoyed that. I mean, like, Batman as a T-Rex. Like, Scott Snyder, how the fuck are you coming up with, like, this cool kind of stuff? Like, come on, that's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool.
Outside of that, Batman right now,
Yeah, you're saying the overhyped Batman.
You know how we were talking about the majority of stuff that we have in our collection?
Yeah.
Most of my DC stuff is Batman.
Yeah.
Like, how does this happen? Like, I don't get
inevitable.
I don't get it, but I'm not trying to collect a whole bunch of Batman by any means. I think the latest Batman book I picked up was the 655, first appearance of Damian Wayne.
Right.
It's a big key book to pick up anyways. But just it's unfortunate that there's literally like 3 or 4 good big publisher titles out right now. Like you would think that there would be more big titles that we could actually really dig our teeth into that are actually doing really well. One thing that I would say I would like to see is an actually really good Flash story, like a new Flash story. Shout out to my boy Justin Comics. All right, shouting you out, bud. I'm helping you get up to 100 subs. All right. He is a huge Flash guy. Huge. Like, I don't think he washes his Flash shirt because he wears the same Flash shirt every video he makes. But I would like to see a good Flash story because I like Flash. And I think he is definitely a very undervalued, superhero. Like, Flash is literally can go back in time and like entirely rewrite time itself in history. So that's kind of like a big deal. As far as like dark, nitty gritty titles, I would like to see a new super awesome Swamp Thing title. I did a video a while back about Swamp Thing, why I like Swamp Thing, some of my Swamp Thing comics that I own. I talked about the DCU eight issue, or not 8 issue, 8 episode TV series they did, which was really great. I liked how it was. It was very horror, and it was like very much like a, like a mystery, very mystery. I'd like to see a good Swamp Thing story.
So you can never go wrong with Swamp Thing. That's for sure. I love it.
I think the Justice League Dark of the New 52 was really great. I did collect some of the newer Justice League Dark that was out, but I don't know. I thought it was a little weird that they had like Wonder Woman in there. And I was just like, eh. And so I end up trading that so I could trade up. But that's just kind of where I'm at. I don't know. I'm not like huge into Teen Titans, Perry. I don't know about that. I haven't read Last Gods. I've thought about it, but I'm not sure. The Hill House books are definitely good, and unfortunately, I got rid of my Hill House book. I did trade up for that to get some other good stuff. But definitely, they need to bring. I think they should bring more horror. They definitely should bring more horror, bring more mystery. Sure. I think that would work because like if you look at the DC Dark Knight's Death Metal, it's kind of like creepy. Like the Batman Who Laughs is super creepy, and I think a lot of people are picking up on that because they're reading it, and I think they really like it. I like it. So let's bring some horror. Let's get some of that really good horror going on. And I think now that Vertigo has now just been sucked into main DC, they need to capitalize on that, because otherwise Vertigo is totally fine by itself. Like it didn't need to get under like the main umbrella of DC, is in its own little world, Constantine with the Hellblazer, original Hellblazer series, Preacher, the Sandman. I think they need to capitalize on that. They need to bring some type of really good horror, or just create a whole new horror, genre, or characters. But that's my opinion for DC. DC, you want to keep up this creepy stuff with the Batman Who Laughs? Like, bring some horror. And Studio Fitness, yes, I did see that they are canceling Hellblazer. They're also canceling Aquaman, which I guess I did like the Drowned Earth story that they had in the Justice League, the Scott Snyder Justice League that was recent, or like within the past year. I did like that story. Excuse me. But I don't know about Aquaman. Aquaman is kind of hard to do. It just seems like it's really hard to do a really good Aquaman story.
He had his moment. I mean, that Throne of Atlantis story was great with the New 52. I loved it.
Yeah.
But you're right. I think it is hard to do. And yeah. Now, just before we wrap up, I just wanted to show a couple more books that I think are worth reading right now. So we definitely have Immortal Hulk. We have Thor. We have Venom. Some other, a couple Batman books, the Dark Knight's Metal. I heard some good things about Daredevil, so I picked this up. I haven't read it yet, with Kingpin as the mayor. And no one's been talking about Amazing Spider-Man, but I'm a huge Amazing Spider-Man fan. So I've actually read the first 5 volumes of the new Amazing Spider-Man series. It's actually pretty good. I recommend picking it up. It's something groundbreaking. I'm at the Craven story for anyone who's reading the Amazing Spider-Man, but yeah, it's definitely worth. I think Amazing Spider-Man is definitely a book that usually is pretty good, even when it's not the greatest, right? So
sure. I mean, if you want to be a vanilla reader, by all means, pick up your Amazing Spider-Man. What
do you mean by vanilla read? I actually don't know what that means.
That's literally what I just made up right now because you said you're reading Amazing Spider-Man. That's it. Nothing else besides that. There has not been any Amazing Spider-Man story that I have really been drawn to. I've been more drawn to Amazing Spider-Man for the collectability and the covers more than anything, not necessarily a story. Daredevil, I love Daredevil. All right. Daredevil was awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
With Kingpin as the mayor, I think in that series you get a new character called Vigil in that story. He's got a first appearance in issues 609, 610, 611, somewhere in there, I think. If that's the same one, I'm pretty sure it's the same one. That was actually pretty good. It's basically the death of Matt Murdock. That's a great story.
Mm-hmm.
That was a good pick. You had a good pick there.
Good. Glad to hear it. Other people are agreeing as well that it's actually pretty good. But yeah, so we've gone a little bit over time here, but that's okay. That just goes to show you that everyone's really having a good time, and the conversation's been great. So I wanted to thank you, Vince, so much for joining us this evening. I want to encourage everybody to go check out Vince's YouTube channel. He does a lot of unboxings. He shares a lot of new issues that he's been collecting. What's your channel called, Vince? To remind everybody.
Vincent McLean, the Comic Machine, and you'll see me back again next Thursday. Live, a new Thursday video. I'm trying to come up with a day to do like my own live stream.
Yeah.
And I think I want to try to do Tuesdays as a live stream. I'm not sure, but you guys are able to find me on YouTube, same title. You can find me on Instagram, Vincent McLean _ the Comic Machine. Send me a message if you guys want to talk, or you got ideas, or you got questions. Hit me up on there.
It's right there, Vincent McLean, the Comic Machine. So definitely check it out, sub Vince, and check out what he's got going on. Thank you all for joining us here weekly. I absolutely love doing this show and being able to interact with you beyond just the comments on YouTube. It's awesome. So thank you so much, and stay tuned for a new video that will be posted on Monday. So it is Friday, geeks. Let's go out and have some fun. I will see you all in the next episode. Take care and have a great weekend.